Hi, it's Kevin Sharp. I'm here today with Dan Jurgens, currently the writer of Lord of the Jungle for Dynamite Comics and a feature running in Action Comics for DC, as well as artist of numerous other titles over the years. Today we're going to be talking about a cover from the Silver Age Batman run. Dan, go ahead.
Okay, so as we started to talk about this entire project, one of the things I decided to do was to pick out a piece of work that made an impression on me as a reader, as a kid, because I wanted to find something that really had that kind of impact. Often, as artists, we kind of assume something we do may have an impact. We never really know for sure until we find out long after the book has been on the stands. But I want to talk about something that when I first saw it as a kid, I just thought it was so incredibly cool that it became a comic that I had to have. And what we're going to talk about today is the cover to Batman number 194, which was done by Carmine Infantino and Murphy Anderson, which features Batman perfectly centered over the top of the cover, kind of breaking through to get Blockbuster, who's down on the lower center of the cover, shattering the Batman logo. And at that time, well, even now, it's not necessarily common that we see logos getting bent, twisted, shaped, and broken up. But on that cover, I just remember seeing it for the first time and just thinking it was absolutely the coolest thing ever. It came out in the summer of 1967. I would have been, 8 years old when it came out, which is kind of when you're really getting into that wow, comics are beyond awesome sort of phase. And it was actually a case where a neighbor kid who lived two houses down from me had the comic, and we were out in his backyard. We were just going through several comics and things like that, and he had that. And the moment I saw it, I just like, whoa, what is this? This is so cool. First of all, I had no idea who Blockbuster even was, so I just needed to find out, who this guy was. But the design of the cover and this idea of the villain shattering the logo, which changes the whole feel of a cover. It changes the dynamic because 99% of every cover you see out there has the logo on top. This one actually breaks that. And it's also such a perfect image, the way it's composed. Um, as a logo itself, Batman, the word Batman is one you can fit on the cover as opposed to dealing with a title like The Adventures of Superman or something like that. But the composition is just wonderful with Batman on the top, leaping forward in a dramatic pose, and Blockbuster down below. And I do remember I ended up swapping like four different comics just to get that one from him. That's how badly I had to have it. And in those days, a 4-for-1 swap, that's a high price to pay.
So when you look at covers like this and anything kind of in this era, as an artist yourself, what do you appreciate about Infantino's kind of draftsmanship at this time?
Well, I have always said that I think there was a couple year period there where Carmine Infantino peaked out as the best cover designer in comics for a couple of years. That is cover dated, I think, August of 1967. It's worth noting that Flash number 172 is also dated August of 1977. And it's worth looking at that because if we take a look at that, that is a famous cover of Gorilla Grodd holding up Flash's empty costume, just making it look as though he just killed Flash, something who knew. I mean, in those times, Carmine excelled at creating covers that were full of drama and also sort of begged a question of what happened here, what is going on. And it was only, say, 2 months after that that the cover to Flash number 174 came out, which is the Flash logo taking up pretty much the entire height of the cover with Flash's, five or six villains perched through the different open spaces of the logo, looking down on what we presume to be, his body laying on the ground. And so Infantino's cover designs at that time were just firing on all cylinders. And what I'm not sure a lot of people necessarily realize is that even if you picked up another cover that might have been drawn, even if it was by Neil Adams, not long after that, or Ross Andrew on Flash or others, the cover designs were still done by Carmine.
So the Batman issue that you've chosen, as our listeners see it, um, as a kid, it's the excitement of, I'm going to guess, the color, the logo being shattered. Is that the dynamism? Is that kind of what caught your eye as you remember?
Well, it is definitely that, but I think we also have to realize that at that time, so if we're looking at, say, summer of 67, perhaps fall of 67, by the time I actually saw it and got my hands on it, what we also have to consider is at that time, the Batman TV Center, the Batman TV show was front and center in American pop culture. I mean, it was the thing. Batman sales, in terms of the comics, were driven by that to incredible heights. It was just everywhere. So I think just the idea that it was a Batman comic, I'll start with that. That is what would have probably been the first draw. But then when you look at the dynamism of the cover, of the logo getting shattered, of Batman fighting a villain like Blockbuster, who was not sort of your typical Batman villain at that time. Here's someone who looked big and strong, and kind of like there was going to be a strong physical confrontation between Batman and the villain. With the logo getting shattered, like a big fight was about to take place, which again wasn't necessarily typical for DC Comics in those days, made it feel so very different. And that difference made it stand out.
Great. Thank you for sharing the memories with us and talking about the cover, Dan.
Sure, sure. And what's also interesting to me about that is, um, you know, it that kind of approach in a way sort of started with a lot of what Will Eisner was doing on his Spirit pages, where he would design the Spirit title into the page itself. But beyond that, there have been many great cover approaches that sort of followed that, whether it was Thor 37, where Walter Simonson has Beta Ray Bill, shattering through the Thor logo, or even not long after this would have come out, Steranko's famous Hulk special cover, where the Hulk is bent over and the Hulk logo on his back. So I think these kinds of things are just wonderful. They're brilliant. I've tried to pull it off, probably not nearly as well. We all have at one time or another, but those are the pinnacle.
Great. Thank you again for joining us.
Absolutely.